The Moonbase is one of Patrick Troughtons' finest performances in the role of the Doctor, facing against the beautifully redesigned Cybermen on the moon. Sadly, episodes 1 and 3 are missing from the BBC's archive, but it was animated in 2014. Join me in my journey of revisiting Doctor Who's missing episode range as we look back and reflect on the Moonbase and discuss Planet 55's third and final animation. The TARDIS team land on the Earth's moon, and the Doctor already wants to leave. There is something wrong at this moon base. People are getting sick and disappearing. Jamie's infected by a virus, and the Doctor and Polly must come up with a cure before it's too late. The Moonbase was the final animation completed by Planet 55, but that wasn't always the case. It was planned that they were going to animate the Underwater Menace. The release got so far that behind-the-scenes features were created for the eventual DVD release, when all of a sudden, it was canned. Eventually, a DVD was released without an animation with the world's worst photo reconstruction. But let's not dwell on that annoying release. I have a whole video talking about it anyway, and instead, let's discuss this great one. I think the Moonbase being considered one of the best animations by fans is a fair statement. I adore this one. Planet 55 have really mastered their technique by this point and have proven themselves as experts in recreating missing episodes of Doctor Who. It's hard to believe that these people produced the Reign of Terror. By this point in Troughton's tenure, he has really found his feet. In Power of the Daleks, there is a mix of strangeness, darkness, and humour. He doesn't let his companions in on what's going on. This mysteriousness returns even in the opening TARDIS scene of the story. Once they land on the moon, he's mumbling about leaving whilst they still can. There is something more to this Doctor than what's on the surface, and he clearly knows more than what he's letting on. It's not something that really happens with the Doctor until Sylvester's performance later on. I've always enjoyed this idea that the Doctor sort of has a sixth sense for danger, an understanding of someone's future just by looking at them. How the Eighth Doctor goes up to people and just knows their entire lives, almost like he's Father Christmas. It's magical and otherworldly. The Doctor, when asked if he's a medical doctor, responds, "Oh, I think I was." And it's just like, who is this guy? He is so unknowing. It must be unnerving for his travelling companions at times. I really believe this is one of Troughton's best performances in the role. The scene where the Doctor and his friends are jumping on the surface of the moon is really fun, but its execution is a bit dull for my taste. I think this team wants this animation to be a close representation of the original production, but I think the scene could have benefited with some more fun and creative camera shots and more interesting character movements. It's not a bad scene, it's not terribly done, it's just not as fun as I think it could have been. The final moments of episode 3 have the Cybermen marching on the moon, and the shots are essentially traced over surviving footage from a midway point through the episode 4. It just would have been nice for them to invent a new shot, a different angle, but I understand why they didn't. I've lauded Planet 55's use of rotoscoping and hand-drawn elements throughout all of my reviews of their work, and for good reason. Adding that little bit of real-life movement really makes the animation feel alive and can trick you into thinking that the episode is back. There's one moment where these characters are picking up another person, and I think if they tried to animate this in a 2D way, it would have been very stilted and stiff. But they've decided to rotoscope it, and it has a real natural movement to it, which I think you just don't get with 2D. People just don't move in a 2D space, they move in 3 dimensions because we live in a 3D world. But don't get me wrong, the current approach of just using 2D images is fine with me. But there is something nice about rotoscope work. As this is Planet 55's last animation, I feel kind of sad that we're not going to get much of this rotoscoping technique in the future. The scene where the TARDIS team attack the Cybermen being all hand-drawn is so dynamic and exciting and fun. Obviously, this approach just takes longer, and you see a few repeated shots. There's one shot of a Cyberman walking on the moon's surface and they replay it about 3 times within 30 seconds. And it's actually kind of funny. But it doesn't annoy me, they just had to fill the runtime, it's fine. Also, it seems to free up more time to hand-drawn other elements, such as the Cyberman collapsing and drawing out goo from its mouth. It's such a great visual and they just can't do stuff like that anymore. It's really surprising that this is Planet 55's first and only Troughton animation. They've instantly mastered the way Patrick moves across the screen, clamping his hands together, lifting his heels. It's as recognisable as Bill Hartnell holding onto his lapel. Replicating movements just feels like we're getting closer to the original performance. You can tell the animators studied the original episodes and care about this element the most. They want to honour the original production, not just in design or how it was shot, but also how it was performed. I love the intentional choice of having the camera focus on the Doctor throughout the entire story. The camera will stay focused on the Doctor as if he's thinking about what's going on around him. They have more confidence in what they can pull off. They're not trying to distract us and cut away from it. They stick to it. And I think it's really impressive. It makes the Doctor feel like he's the lead. It makes it feel like he knows more than what he's leading on. It makes it feel like there is an upcoming threat that cannot be stopped. It feels inevitable. The recreation of the original design elements is brilliant as well. From the cyber ship on the moon's surface in a classic UFO shape, the shine reflecting off the Cybermen's metallic armour, the gorgeous huge window looking out onto the surface of the moon. It feels so in reach. The surface of the moon replicates the original, but just looks so much more expensive because you can't see where the studio wall is. It's just beautiful. I love Polly throughout this entire episode. Her compassion towards the patients who have the virus, calling out the computer doctor by saying that it can help them, but it can't be kind to them, is so endearing and sweet. The script is, of course, quite sexist towards her in many ways. She's the only woman in the entire story, and the doctor asks her to make coffee. Ultimately, the coffee is an important part of the story, so it's not sexist within itself, but her being chosen to make it doesn't have great optics. But she is given her moment to be a true hero in the story. It's her ingenuity that comes up with a way to stop the Cybermen, using nail polish remover of all things. It kind of reminds me, this is so dumb, of Daphne in the Scooby-Doo movies, using her femininity as the strength. It's very 2000s girl power, and I love it. Ben tries to tell her that it's men's work, but she says she's going to attack the Cybermen anyway. And good for her, it's her plan. There's also a sequence where the Doctor explains an artificial day-night cycle to Polly, and the script is so condescending. But the way Troughton chooses to perform it in a way that is so kind and makes it feel like him and Polly are on the same level. I feel as if Pertwee was given this dialogue to perform, you'd be like, what is wrong with you? Leave Joe Grant alone. But Pat's intentional decision to perform it in this way is so much better. One of the greatest animated sequences is in the storeroom with Ralph and Ben. A Cyberman is approaching Ralph in the shadows, and as Ben appears, the Cyberman's shadow disappears. It's a really menacing and inventive shot, and poor Ralph's demise is really beautifully done. It's moments like this where they slightly push what could have been achieved at the time and give it that extra polish where this animation really shines. I think sometimes if we get too hung up on pure recreation, the story can sometimes feel a bit flat and dull. I think a slight exaggeration is totally fine. The Cybermen lurking in the shadow goes throughout the entire first episode, especially those final chilling moments, a shadow passing Jamie in the medical bed, the out of focus shot of the Cyberman exiting the room, just missing what he looks like. It's a shot that they try to pull off in the existing episode too, and they just don't nail it like they did here. The Cybermen are slow, lumbering, and out of sight. 60s Doctor Who excels when its monsters are plotting and intentional with their plans. It's always scarier when the monsters know what they're going to do and have no doubt in their plans. The Cybermen's voices are also very creepy, but at times it's quite difficult to understand them. Me, being a sad Doctor Who nerd, understood them quite well, but I remember watching them for the first time in Tomb of the Cybermen and had to chuck on subtitles. I wonder what 1960s audiences thought on first broadcast without access to subtitles. It's sad as well because there is some really cracking lines from the Cybermen. My personal favourite is when they're asked how they entered the Moonbase and they reply, "It was very simple, only stupid Earth brains like yours would have been fooled." The Cybermen have always been divas, but this animation is just so well directed. The animators are so confident in what they're doing that you actually stop paying attention to the fact that it's animated and just enjoy the story for what it is. And I think that is the greatest compliment you can give for this type of restoration project. Flashy effects and lighting can help disguise a cheap animation, but if its bones are good, you don't need distractions. Also, the plot itself is just solid. It's a classic base under siege story. The TARDIS team are stuck somewhere with a monster inside. It is a classic formula in this era, and there's a reason for it. They're very good at pulling it off. The story doesn't reinvent the wheel. It's got confidence in its ability to tell that type of story. It's spooky, and the atmosphere is filled with dread. The music in the story feels like slow, metallic breathing. It's so unsettling, and makes you feel like the Cybermen are just around the corner waiting to attack. Of course, some of the science in this story is a bit whack. Apparently a massive hole in a window can just be sealed by a jacket, even if it was just temporarily. But temporarily, it worked. It's just crazy. But it's so much fun that you can forgive it. As much as I adore these missing episode animations, there are moments throughout watching all of them where you think, God, I wish the original existed so I could see this. The end of episode 4 leads into a cliffhanger teasing episode 1 of the Macra Terror. Seeing the claw of the Macra in the TARDIS scanner just fires up your imagination. Sometimes it's not so much, what did the original production look like, but what did it feel like? We know what these productions look like from telesnaps and on-set photographs and even surviving clips, but what did they feel like? That's what we're missing. Is it as scary as it sounds? Or have our imaginations just expanded it? That's the beauty of these missing episodes. That's what makes them so interesting and exciting. It's the unknown. It's devastating that Planet 55 didn't get a chance to animate future episodes of Doctor Who. We'll never get to see their version of the Underwater Menace. The closest glimpse we'll ever get is the TARDIS travelers in their costumes from the story in the opening moments of the Moonbase animation. It's like staring into the TARDIS scanner, getting a small peek into what could have been, but something we'll never see. I've really enjoyed the vast majority of Planet 55's work with Doctor Who, and it's sad to say goodbye to them. So, what did you think of the animation of the Moonbase? Let me know in the comment section below. Okay. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Josh Nez YouTube channel.